Howdy folks, thanks for joining our Monday Mindshare this week, and we're coming from Chamonix in France and enjoying some warmer weather here in the valley. We just got back from a race in Verbier, my son's first marathon that he got his ultra under his belt, 10,000 feet of climbing, and we're just recovering here now in the valley in Chamonix. We want to talk. It's been some time since we've actually run and raced ultra in the mountains, so want to get back to some tuning the best ways on how to set up your SFuels for ultra running in the mountains, both supported and unsupported race. So I've just got some topics here that we'll talk about. We'll talk about setting up a race vest and the flasks of where we'll hold our SFuels. And then we'll talk a little bit about unsupported races and also supported races. And then I do want to touch at the end on some other nutrition in addition to what we do in the spirit of fueling. Nutrition that will help, of course, in ultras that are of extended distances, meaning like 12, 24, 40 hours, even multi-day races. So let's jump into it. Okay, let's talk firstly about setting up the race vest. Now, typically, an athlete will have either a bladder in the back, or they'll have in the front pockets here, if I can turn this around the right way, the pockets to hold the soft flask. And we're going to talk about how to set these soft flasks up now. There's really several settings you want to have, if you will, for the soft flask. One you want to have that's full, ready to drink with Race Plus, and we'll get into the dosages soon, in your front of your vest at the race start. There'll be some, though, that you have a dry powder of the Race Plus powder in the soft flask, but without the water. And you can either roll these up and put them with a rubber band into the back of your race flask, of your race vest, and basically hold them as we go through the race. We'll hydrate those and use them accordingly. And then you'll have at the race start, and this changes a little bit depending on if your race crew, your support crew is at the race start with you, or if they're not. If they're not, that's fine. Basically, you'll have another container or a flask or what have you that you'll either take with you if you're unsupported, or you'll give it to your support crew if you are supported. But that will have your 2 serves of SFuels PRIMED, and that is for the 1 hour before the race, where you just want to keep your hydration right. At the same time, you want to have, for the first 30 minutes, no carbohydrate, and really set yourself up for optimized fat oxidation and also for just cognitive readiness to embrace the race that's ahead of you. 2 serves of SFuels PRIMED with water. Have that, start that, sipping on that the hour before race start, and then obviously as you get into the race for the first 30 minutes. And after that, you'll jump over to your Race Plus soft flask, and you'll start sipping on that and drinking that through the entire race. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about dosage. Now you can find more details of this, of course, in our usage guide, and everyone's different race to race, and depending upon where you are as a recreational athlete or a competitive athlete, etc. But generally, 2 to 3 serves per hour of our Race Plus drink is not uncommon. Usually sitting in that 20 to 45, sometimes up to 60 grams per hour. Now remember, it's 15 grams of carbohydrate in the single scoop, I should say, of Race Plus, and you would typically mix multiple of those per hour, and you would mix that into your soft flask. Now, some athletes will then use this as a concentrate, and by that meaning they will have multiple hours of fuel and hydration, I should say just fueling, in the one soft flask. So think of 2 hours, and you're 2 doses per hour, so 30 grams per hour of carbohydrate. You might have 2 doses for the hour, and then you convert this into a concentrate by making a 2-hour flask. Therefore, you would have 2 by the 2 doses, or 4, if you will, scoops of Race Plus in just one soft flask. Now you need to look at your race and where the aid stations are to work out whether you do need to have some concentrated flasks, or you just have to have single serve, single hour dose flasks, etc. Nevertheless, you'd have these set up in your front of your race vest for race start. and you'd start your race, and away you'll go. As you go through the race, of course, you would then just start taking your used soft flask out of the front, come into the aid station with your powder only flask, take the lid off, hydrate the flask, put the hydrated one into the front, put the used ones into the back of your race vest, and keep going. And you basically cycle through that as you go through the aid stations in the race. And this is in a totally unsupported race. Now remember, the SFuels Primed, from a caffeine perspective, there's two aspects to this. One is the effect of caffeine is about 6 hours before it has a half-life, meaning like half of its strength is lost within 6 hours. So therefore, if your race is a 12-hour race, you may want to think about another dose of caffeine. In the case of using it for fat oxidation, 2 doses each 6 hours through the race. And you can either preload that again with your Race Plus, put the caffeine primed, SFuels Primed also in here, so it's all ready to go. And you know you can put a little rubber band around the flask, and that determines the ones that you have the primed in it. So as you get 6 hours into the race, maybe that's the end of the day, is dusk, it's getting into the night part of the race, and you want to start the caffeine then. You just look for the soft flask, the dry powder soft flask with a little rubber band around, and you know that's the one that's got the primed in it. Now that's just for setting it up. Let's talk about the unsupported race and how the flow would work, if you will, pre-race and during race, and then after the race. So pre-race, as I said, really an hour before the race start, you want to start your SFuels Prime. And the reason for that is it's the primed that will begin to work on both the cognitive function and begin to prime your fat oxidation before race start. You do want to avoid a lot of carbohydrate pre-race. You know, the carbohydrates will blunten your fat oxidation by stimulating insulin. So just stick to the primed for that 1 hour before the race. As you get into the first 30 minutes, continue with that primed hydration drink. And as you go through that first 30 minutes, and after that is then when you would start on your Race Plus with carbohydrates and the MCT fats to give you the fuel to go through the race. And basically, like you've set up, you've had your 2 race flasks here. As you go through the race, as you come into aid stations, you know you've nearly finished these. The ideal thing to do is to finish it off, complete the hydration and the fuel that's in those. As you get into the aid station, wrap these up as the old ones that are used, put them into the back of your race vest, grab the new powder only ones, put the hydration, the water into them, put them in the front of your vest, and keep going. Now clearly, if you desire to chew on something, we obviously have our SFuels Life Bars, but at aid stations there's plenty of options. Stick away from the simple things, meaning a lot of white flour and a lot of simple white sugars. Those things, of course, are primed for triggering gut distress, particularly in an extended long race, where if you keep doing that, you will begin to cause gut problems later in the race. The only other thing I would say is just really look at the duration of the race and where the aid stations are placed, and do the math on understanding how much fuel you'll need, how many soft flasks you'll need. Break up the race into each of the aid stations, multiply it by the soft flasks, and then preload those before the race. You're going to avoid all the mucking around with playing around with powders during the race, and it's not a fun experience. I've learned the hard way with that. I'm sure many of you have. Preload them into the soft flask and just have them ready to go, and just swap them in and out as you go through the race. Let's talk now about a supported race, which is actually a little easier, of course. Firstly, even the SFuels Primed, you can have 1 dose in a cup or a drinking mug, etc. You can knock that over before, in that 1 hour prior to the race. You can hand the cup or the container to your support crew. The gun goes off, and you basically just want to have 1 of your soft flasks just with SFuels Primed, using that for the first 30 minutes, and that will see you on your way. And then as you get into, of course, after that 30 minutes, it's the same process. Use your fully ready to drink Race Plus in the front of your race vests. Use that until you get to the aid station where your support crew will be there waiting. And the nice thing about a support crew, of course, is that you're not having to basically take the old ones out and wrap them up and put them into the back of your vest. You're basically going to give them to the support crew. They're going to give you brand new ones back, fully loaded, ready to drink with the Race Plus all to go. One thing I would say is spend time with your support crew before the race, teaching them how to mix the fluid, the water with the Race Plus powder. You can already preload them as just powder into the flasks for your race crew, but you do want to just really train them on putting the powder in, putting the water in, go straight up, have the cap on tight, go upside down, and then shake it. The reason why you want to go upside down, you want to get the powder to come to the top where the valve is not, but at the top, and you're going to basically shake it for quite some time, and it's going to mix in well through the top to get all of that carbohydrate mixed through the water, and then bring it back up, so you avoid as best possible getting any of it caught in the valve at the top. And then the same story is just continues as you go through the 8 stations. Your support crew will basically replace in and out. If they are going to reuse flasks, meaning that you've already used one in a prior part of the race, you get to a latter section, and then they're going to reuse one of these by putting new powder in and putting new water in, that's fine. I would just suggest they fill half with water, put the powder in, turn it upside down, shake it until it's all mixed thoroughly, and then put the rest of the water in. It's just that you want to avoid having that dry powder stick and get into clumps, and the easy way to do that is really shake it well, and it's best to do that with like a half filled flask, and then shake it well upside down, and then basically put the rest of the water into the flask and just shake it out. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of other nutrition in these races. Now again, remember that these races are typically 8, 12, even 40 hours, multiple days. And with that, of course, you go through the daytime, you go through the nighttime, and it's just a much longer, if you will, stress on the body. You just got to think about other nutritional elements that will support you in basically embracing and racing through a race like that. The first one is that of glutamine. I would suggest that you think about 2 to 3 to 4 grams per hour in these day-long races. This is like 12, 24-hour long races. Having a couple of capsules, and you're basically taking them each hour as you go through the race. 1 gram per capsule. We've used up to 4 grams per hour. It's really just going to help in the latter part of the race with respect to muscle soreness and weakness. It'll really support 2 things. One is glutamine has a very strong effect on triggering the synthesis of glycogen in liver and muscle, and that's obviously what you want to be done through the race to support the latter end of the race. And secondly, these types of races, particularly where there's a lot of elevation change, very hard on the hips and the quads and the calf muscles, and the glutamine will just help to support, rather than actually breaking down muscle tissue to provide fuel. The glutamine actually helps to mitigate that from happening. The second thing is obviously electrolytes. You do want to keep your electrolytes, while it is in the Race Plus products, you do want a separate lever that you can add and change the amount of electrolytes that you may need to take, as through a race day, the temperature can dramatically change. Down in the valley here in Chamonix, you can find it being 30 degrees. As you get up the mountain, it can be in single digits, and that's Celsius I'm talking about. It can be in single digits. So big difference in the range of temperature, and of course how your body handles hydration and salts during those different temperatures, and even humidities is very different. And then lastly, I would suggest just thinking more about caffeine. You're going to take it at the start of the race to get your head ready, to get your fat oxidation primed. But as I said earlier, it does have a half-life of around 6 hours. So firstly, every 6-hour period, you should be thinking about taking another couple of doses of SFuels PRIMED for the same reasons. And then also, depending upon the nature of when your race starts, either in the morning or in the afternoon or even in the evening, it may change the timing of when you take SFuels PRIMED. And obviously, as you get into the night and you want to be fully aware and fully cognitive ready to deal with just night running and racing, which requires a lot more focus, particularly on the ground and the terrain in front of you, and particularly in technical races, SFuels PRIMED will certainly help with that. I hope this helps. One thing I would do with the primed is preload it into some of your flasks. and have it like with your Race Plus and SFuels Primed already pre-mixed. Put the rubber band around it, easy to identify for both your support crew or if you're running it alone. Hope this helps in your next ultras and your long distance, even training sessions out on the trails, through the day, through the night, and should help you get through in one piece. And I wish you all the very best for your trail running this season in 2023. Thanks very much for joining. We'll catch up next week.